Data migration projects often require flexibility in terms of data validation and data transformation rules that can be applied upon data. You might also require some very specific orchestration, and you might have a very specific process that you need to follow. Linx can assist with all of this. In this video, we're going to take a look at a very simple data migration example. Data will be loaded from the source system, data validations will be applied. If the data validation is passed, data will be migrated onto the target database. If not, they must be logged inside an error table. There will be a simple front end built with Stadium to manage these error values, and once they're resolved, they will also be migrated onto the target database. You're currently looking at a front end that has been built with Stadium. This front end visually represents what happens in the back end. When we click on the Run Migration button, data will be migrated from the source database into the target database. However, any records that fail validation will be loaded into an error table and will not be immediately migrated into the target database. Let's do that now. See that only records that pass validation has been migrated into the target database. We can go into the validation errors page to view any records that has failed validation. As an example, this one failed an age validation and this one failed an email validation. A special panel has been built to update these records so that we can clean the data. As an example, the age incorrect validation over here can be fixed by removing the minus there and then saying that this record is resolved. For this one, we need to type in a valid email address and then say that that is resolved. Now when we run the error processing, those records will be migrated into the target database like this. To illustrate what this looks like in the backend, let's open Linx. In Linx, we have two major functions that will do the work, the migrate data function and the run error values function. For the migrate data process, we connect to the source database. Then for each row, we're going to check whether or not that row is valid. We have two very basic validations over here. One to check whether or not the email is valid and one to check whether or not the age is valid. Of course, these validations can be made much more complex to suit your specific business requirement. If the validation fails, we will set a validation fail and a message. And then we will check over here whether or not the validation for the specific record has passed. If validation has passed, migrate it into the target database. Otherwise, move that record into the errors table. This is a very basic example of what a data migration would look like with Linx. Of course, we can also retrieve data from any data source and feed that data into any data target, meaning we can connect to an API, from files, queues, and so forth. Then for the run error values process, we simply retrieve all of the error values that have been resolved and read those into our target database. The Linx process also contains a simple REST host. This is to host a REST API that will facilitate all of the data interactions for the front end. The Stadium front end connects to this API to get all of the data to display on the front end and to expose the back-end functionality such as running the migration and running the migration for resolved error values. This has been created by using the simple REST host component inside of Linx that can allow you to create APIs in minutes. Lastly, the Linx solution does orchestration by using a job scheduler. The job scheduler will run jobs in an automated fashion and will track and trace those jobs to make sure that they are logged inside of a logging table. The job scheduler specifically has two queues, one queue to run the migration itself and one queue to run the error value migration. These specific jobs will be kicked off every morning at 8 o'clock, and that is set here with this cron. And that's how this very simple migration process runs. You can build your own data migration process with Linx and with any front end of your choice if you choose to use Stadium. Stadium looks like this. This is the error validation screen that has that additional update panel to update error values. This was a basic look at a very simple data migration example. Of course, your data migration can be much more complicated and be built according to your specific business requirements and business needs. For more information, visit linx.software.